Today we have Sanjay Kumar, who's the VP of Product and Marketing at Arrcus. Okay, so just give us a quick background on who you are and how you ended up in the networking field in general and Arrcus in particular.
Sure. Happy to share that. So I started my career in networking with Cisco Systems. I think we're all aware of it. Fantastic company, great place to actually um, really learn what networking is all about and product management in particular. I was very interested in product management. Sort of gives you a 360 view of the business and allows you to really see how to ideate, incubate, and bring products to the market. I spent time at Cisco Systems, following which I worked at several other networking companies, including Broadcom, in the switching business, as well as with HPE Aruba. And then I was also at a company called IP Infusion, which was in disaggregated networking, which is what brought me really to Argus. So far as I hope the next time we speak, Arcus will have become a household name because that's our ambition.
Yes.
As far as what we do, Arcus is a innovative company disrupting the networking space by delivering a software programmable switching and routing stack. And this is something that can be deployed across the network, all the way from the edge to the multi-cloud. It is an extremely innovative way of being able to deliver networks. And we're looking really to disrupt how networks are created, deployed, and how services can be rolled out on top of that.
What in particular does Arrcus do? What makes it different from the existing networking vendors?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we have a networking stack that is fully programmable, as I mentioned. It can be deployed in any form factor, whether it is for special purpose switches or routers, whether it's for on as a VM, as a container, and it can be deployed anywhere, whether it's on-prem or it's in the cloud. This is something that is truly unique compared to whether it's the traditional networking companies or, for that matter, any company engaged in open networking. Because of the modularity and the extensibility of our platform, we're able to deliver multiple use cases, whether it is networking at the edge, access layer, aggregation layer, core, and into the multi cloud. Most companies will typically address one or some of these kind of solutions, or one of these network domains with solutions, with sort of point solutions. What we have is a unified fabric that really cuts across all of these different use cases, giving the customers really a unified platform on which they can build services and any kind of innovations that they might be looking at. So we believe that this is what really separates us from everybody else, and we're completely agnostic to the underlying hardware, what choice of silicon, or for that matter, what kind of form factor you might choose, as well as whom you might choose it from. There's a variety of white box vendors out there who are really innovating from a hardware perspective, and we are completely agnostic to which platform you can run our operating system on, and as well as our networking stack on. So this is what essentially differentiates us from everybody else. The unified platform, as well as the ability to cut across multiple use cases, and being completely agnostic to the hardware and where you want to run it.
Thanks for that. And it leads to my next question. One of your core products is Arrcus. What makes it such a revolutionary product?
So ArcOS was really built by the founders who came together from places like Cisco and understood what the challenges were when it came to building modern networks. So they looked at architecting an operating system from the ground up, rather than just choosing something that was open source. They chose to build a routing stack on BGP, which is a very, very robust security protocol. And they built it in a fashion that it was completely modular, was able to deliver had a microservices architecture, so you containerize it, for example, and also was API first. Rather than APIs being a second citizen, being bolted on or exposed, this is built with APIs in mind. So as a result of this, this architecture really is highly performant. It is able to scale up as well as scale out. So not only is it able to leverage the increases in processing power, but it's also able to leverage the advancements that have been made in processing with multiple cores, and this is able to extract the maximum performance out of that underlying silicon, and is then able to provide the best possible performance in terms of convergence times, the highest possible scale, and of course the extensibility for so many different use cases. It's completely cloud native as well, and therefore it is built for the modern era. Now, some of the things that I was talking about earlier was the extensibility of this platform. One other thing that we are able to provide with this operating system at the core and building up to what we call the ACE platform is that we are able to deliver, very high savings for customers. So the total TCO can be greatly reduced by up to about 40% from a capex and an opex perspective. So this is, what we believe is sort of the core differentiation of our platform and the kind of benefits we're able to deliver to customers.
The product is built around merchant silicon. What constraints did customers have before that have been solved by the commodification of networking software?
That's a great question, Faris. So what's happened is that first you had what was called networking 1.0, what we refer to as networking 1.0, which is a completely vertically integrated stack, all the way from custom built silicon by some of the bigger vendors with their own software stack and applications, let's say, running on top of that, which meant you were essentially in a completely closed kind of an environment. Networking 2.0, which was essentially enabled by the availability of merchant silicon, uh, relied on merchant silicon being used to develop hardware platforms, but it was still proprietary in the sense that the hardware was proprietary from the different networking vendors, as well as the software and the application stacks. So while it gave you sort of a choice of different platforms, it was essentially from the same vendor, and you were still faced with the same lock-in kind of a conundrum. Networking 3.0, which is what we are really leveraging and riding on, is where merchant silicon has been able to make great advances in terms of the performance as well as the scale and the functionality that can be delivered, with much more efficient power consumption as well. So with these kind of capabilities now, customers are able to get the latest features and the latest innovations at record pace. This can be delivered in a much faster way for customers. What the problem that we are really solving is twofold. Number one, helping customers break away from this closed system kind of a approach and be able to have a greater choice of both merchant silicon as well as the platforms that can be used. And this increases the pace of innovation, and with the traditional vendors, for example, new platforms are slow to roll out, new features and functionality are slow to roll out. It can take anywhere from 18 to 24 months to do that. With the availability of merchant silicon and the approach that Arrcus has, we can deliver new platforms at record pace, and it can be as little as 4 months, for example, and new features on account of the modularity of our platform can be delivered again in a matter of weeks, or if not months. So this is the kind of problem we have looked to solve in concert with the advancements that have been made with merchant silicon. So if you look at it, the traditional networking was extremely rigid and hardware centric. And with what merchant silicon and we've been able to do, it essentially helps the customers break free from that closed kind of environment and allows them to increase their pace of innovation and be able to modernize their networks.
And the thing is, when you look at how technologies consume each other, different levels of maturity, you've got older telcos, but you also have quite a number of greenfield companies. Like, to use a local example, Safaricom is setting up a new network in Ethiopia. That's a completely greenfield network. Our largest data centers, greenfield. So there's an opportunity to sort of build on the right platforms. How would Arcus help accelerate the networking industry as a whole across African emerging markets in general?
That's a really really exciting opportunity, and the way we would really help the um, all of the companies that are looking to modernize their network is on a couple of fronts, right? Number one, with the kind of architecture and the solutions that we have. We talked about our Arc OS, which is the operating system. That's really sort of the bottom layer of what we call the ACE or Arcus Connected Edge platform. The second layer is what we refer to as Arc Edge, which is the connective tissue that helps you between 5G and multi-cloud connectivity. And the third layer on top of that is our observability, analytics, as well as orchestration platform. So with this multi-layered ACE platform, what it enables is the ability for customers to be able to um, use it for multiple use cases. So you may choose to start with your data center first, or it may be something that you want to do at the edge, or it may be something that you want to do in terms of multi-cloud, either for your own network or for that matter for delivering managed services, right? So in any of those cases, our platform can be used in each one of these instances and many more in a very very cost effective fashion and extremely easy to deploy as well. As I mentioned, you can it is completely agnostic to the underlying hardware. You can deliver it on a switch or a router. You can deliver it as a VM. You can deliver it as a container, and you can deliver it on-prem or in the cloud. So depending on how you're looking to modernize your network or construct your network, you can leverage our platform to be able to make realize the potential, make the maximum use of how the kind of hardware that might be interesting to you. So you have that flexibility, and then you have the modularity of the platform that allows you to get whatever features you might be looking for. For example, SRv6, if it's a greenfield network, you might be looking to have an IP6 network. And with segment routing on top of that, you can enable traffic engineering features. This is an example of the kind of innovation that we can deliver very much as a plug-in to your overall infrastructure. Right, so there's the innovation piece and the features and functionality that we can deliver, and then on account of our API first architecture, so our northbound interfaces allow you to integrate into any kind of OSS BSS platform, any kind of automation or orchestration platform that you might consider, which makes it very easy for you to be able to quickly deploy this. And again, our customers have seen this, that they're able to quickly, I mentioned CoreSite, other customers also have very easily been able to leverage our platform to not only roll out the network, but also roll out services in record time on top of that. So at the same time, keeping have maintaining a low total cost of ownership. So this is how we believe we can help uh, all of the organizations in Africa that really looking to modernize their network and start delivering these new world services wherever they might be on that technology transition phase, whether it is upgrading over to 5G, or for that matter delivering new applications, or for that matter going from cloud to multi-cloud or edge to multi-cloud. We can enable all of that in record time in a modular fashion with new services and being delivered with a lower total cost of ownership. So we're excited about the opportunity that there is in Africa, and we hope we'll have a chance to engage with customers to be able to talk more about how we can help and really um, uh, sort of grow together. See these uh, fundamental shifts and transitions in the networks today. Whether you take a look at enterprises, or for that matter, the telcos and service providers or hyperscalers. These fundamental shifts are the transition to 5G, the emergence of the edge as a place where a lot of new applications need to be delivered, the journey from cloud to multi cloud. And you have a lot of the new applications, whether it's the metaverse, which requires very high bandwidth, low latency at the point of consumption. You've got Web 3.0, which is completely decentralized. With all of these network transitions and fundamental shifts, technology shifts, what we find is that the network boundaries are blurring. The functions of specific network domains is no longer as neat as it used to be, as well as the ownership of those domains has completely changed. Uh, who owns the edge, who owns the core, who owns the multi-cloud is completely blurred. What this essentially means is that the old way of addressing these networks, the traditional way rather, is simply not sufficient to be able to deal with these kind of challenges. What you need now is a network fabric, both an underlay and an overlay fabric that stretches across all these domains in a unified fashion. Make sure that it is agile, needs to be programmable, and needs to be completely secure in order to be able to deliver to these particular challenges. Now, legacy and traditional networks or solutions simply do not address this because they're hardware centric, they're very rigid, they're siloed, and above all, they're very expensive, right? What we bring in is a very different approach to addressing these challenges. We provide, with our platform, a completely unified um, routing uh, fabric that stretches across all these different use cases and is completely agnostic to the underlying hardware. Now, customers are able to pick and choose what kind of form factor they might want to run the network on, whether it is special purpose switches and routers, or for that matter, VMs, containers, and can be run anywhere on the on-prem or in the cloud. Sort of helps them break free from the rigidity of the traditional networking and gives them this stretchable, extensible kind of fabric. And at the end of the day, this helps deliver superior user experience as well as gives them much more control and allows them to innovate at a much greater pace. So the kind of multiple use cases that we're able to provide, typically with traditional networking vendors, or for that matter, with open networking vendors, you typically have point solutions for different points in the network. We cut right across, whether it's edge networking, aggregation routing, access technologies, data center, spine and leaf kind of solutions, um, uh, opening up the core with virtualized distributed routing, multi-cloud networking. These are all the different types of use cases that we're able to address. And we do this with much lower total cost of ownership, sometimes as much as 40% lower. And very importantly as well, while we are solving the underlying networking problem, this we also deliver a platform for managed service delivery. Now this helps whether it's your colo providers, telcos, hyperscalers, or for that matter, even enterprises. They now get a platform on which they can build new services and be able to deliver them to their customers and be able to monetize their underlying infrastructure. So that's sort of in some that's how we see the challenges today in the marketplace, what we hear from customers, and the problems that we're trying to solve. Is a co-location provider here in North America, and they were looking to roll out managed services to enterprises in the form of multi-cloud connectivity. Earlier on, it was sort of a fairly manually driven and sort of time consuming kind of a process where enterprises would submit a request to CoreSite to help them set up links between different cloud providers for a certain amount of bandwidth. And then CoreSite would take that and manually configure it in the background. It would take sometimes weeks in order for them to be able to deliver that service or turn on that service for the enterprise. With our platform, what they've been able to do is deliver, or rather create what they call the Open Cloud Exchange. And the Open Cloud Exchange is a customer facing portal. Enterprises can go to that portal and pretty much do a self service. They can, with a few clicks, put in a request for what connections they might be looking for between which cloud vendors, and as well as what kind of bandwidth they might be looking for. With a few clicks, they're up and ready, and their services is on in a matter of minutes. So this is a way in which telco, someone like a managed service provider like CoreSite has been able to accelerate the delivery of services for enterprises, make it much easier for them to be able to consume the service, and has accelerated their time to revenue as well. So this is just an example of how our platform delivers a managed services is a managed services delivery platform for the telcos and service providers that they can very quickly leverage and be able to meet their business objectives.
For that, because it's also a use case that I'm personally interested in.
I would love to talk to you more about that when we have an opportunity.
Yeah, I'll make sure we do. And building on top of that, you mentioned enterprises. What I've observed is that as companies are growing, their networks are becoming more and more complicated. You have small offices, you've got the core network at HQ. How does Arcus change the journey for most enterprises?
I think the kind of challenges that enterprises have in some cases mirrors what the telcos are also facing, right? So there is the requirement for, I mean, if you take what's happened over the pandemic, essentially it has forced the organizations to rethink what the extent of their entire network is. It's no longer something that is contained to specific locations, whether it's your head office and your branch offices, but it is completely spread out. Your employee could be anywhere and needs to access the network in any manner possible, right? So there's this, what this means is that you need your network to be completely ubiquitous, right? It is no longer confined to certain locations. Number two, enterprises are also faced with the same challenge of uh, how do I uh, manage my journey from the on-prem to the multi-cloud. That's where most of their applications today live. And how do I route this traffic in a secure and efficient fashion without having to necessarily hairpin all my traffic each time that I needed to go to a certain destination? These are the kind of challenges that they have. At the same time, I think the kind of applications that the enterprises are looking to deliver, whether it is in the form of how they participate in the metaverse and the need for low latency, high bandwidth applications at the edge and at the point of consumption, as well as Web 3.0 kind of applications, which requires essentially decentralizes and changes the entire paradigm from a consumption perspective as well as from a network perspective. How do you manage all of this while keeping the cost low is if I was to sum up the challenge that enterprises face. I think another key thing is the focus on customer experience, right? That is something that both the service providers as well as the enterprises share. At the end of the day, you've got to make sure that you have superior customer service, and how can you deliver it across all of these different fronts, whether it is how your getting onto the network and where you might be, where your applications reside, what kind of applications you have, and so on and so forth. All of this essentially means that your traditional ways of networking simply don't cut it. If you think about it, those the clean and hard lines between network domains has completely blurred, uh, and as well as the ownership of those network domains. It's no longer clear who owns the edge, who owns the core, who owns the cloud experience, right? And the telcos, in fact, along with the hyperscale providers and the enterprises, are sort of tied together in this journey. And because of this blurring of boundaries, what that means is your traditional networking solutions can no longer address those challenges. They're very hardware centric, they're very rigid, and they're very, very siloed. What this means is you need an extensible fabric, networking fabric, from an underlay as well as an overlay perspective, that is kind of not just ubiquitous but also invisible, and is completely agile, needs to be programmable, and needs to be completely secure. So that is essentially the paradigm that is faced, that not just the enterprises but the telcos as well as the hyperscale providers face today. And that's where we come in by providing something that is truly unified across all of these different use cases.
Thanks, Sanjay. And you mentioned Corsair as an example, and they're basically using it to help connect to the hyperscalers and other clouds. So clearly, Arrcus has quite a number of applications in the multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environment. Other than what you've done with Corsair, what other use cases have you seen come up?
Yeah, that's another great question. So this is an extremely um, important challenge that everyone is facing today. And if I was to break this down, both from a hybrid cloud and a multi-cloud perspective, there the challenge remains is essentially the same. How do you enable the journey for all of these organizations to go to from a single cloud, for example, to multiple versions, or a multi-cloud, as well as how do you um, ensure that the hybrid cloud is also part of this, which means now you need to be able to take into account how do you on ramp from your, let's say, your existing on-prem architecture, or for that matter a hybrid cloud, into the multiple clouds, not just one hyperscaler, but across hyperscalers, as well as how do you manage in cloud connectivity. So these are sort of the three areas in which you need to be able to manage this overall journey. And you need to also be able to extend this all the way to the edge, with 5G and mech applications, or for that matter metaverse applications being delivered at the edge. Those cannot be left out as a separate kind of entity. When you look at this whole journey, really what it means is that what we like to refer to it as, and analysts refer to it as, the distributed cloud is really what you need to think about, rather than just a hybrid cloud or a multi-cloud. So the challenge is, how do I have a unified user experience all the way from the edge where these applications are being delivered into the multi-cloud where my assets need to now reside? How do I extend the network from where it currently was on prem, for example, into that multi cloud in a secure and seamless fashion, by making sure that it is fully interoperable, that I am able to leverage the same tools that I have, and that I don't have to go in and start learning, relearning, or learning new tools, for that matter, that are specific to each cloud provider. So once again, this points to the need for a unified sort of approach, or a unified fabric that can stretch across and give a sort of a consistent experience in being able to deliver this application. So that's how we really see this entire multi-cloud journey. It's sort of distributed, and we address this with a platform that we call Flex MCN. It's the name essentially suggests that it is a completely flexible way in which you can be able to deliver your cloud experience, distributed cloud experience, all the way from the edge into the multi-cloud.
Finally, what surprises have you encountered, if any?
Yeah, that's a great question. All of this means that there will always be some surprise around the corner. I think one of the things from a very positive, refreshing point of view, I think one of the pleasant surprises has been how sort of aligned our customers' vision is with ours. The need to break free from the traditional networking, number one. Number two, rolling out new services, and keeping pace with the innovation, and being aggressively driving the pace of innovation, as well as doing this in a way that gives them more control over the network. I think that vision is very well aligned. I think in terms of challenges that we've seen, I think customers are crying out for a way to simplify this journey for them. I think one of the advantages that they've seen with the traditional vendors is that there is one sort of entity to go to, right? So with this open networking kind of a journey, it sometimes is a challenge in picking up all the different pieces, bringing them together, as well as not knowing who to call for support. And that's really a crying need that we've heard from customers in how do you simplify this disaggregated kind of solution fulfillment. And that's something that we've risen up to as well. That challenge is something that we've risen up to. What we do is, it's not just our operating system or the platform that we provide to our customers. We completely validate it and qualify it across different platforms, as well as have an ecosystem. We call it the PACE Partnership Program, which brings in an ecosystem of different vendors that are complementary to our solution, being able to deliver sort of a shrink wrap solution to customers to help them with their different challenges. What this provides customer is not just a well-packaged solution, but which can be fulfilled very easily from us, and at the same time completely supported by Arrcus. So we're at the front line of providing support to the customers. We triage all solutions that come in, whether it is hardware related, software related, application related, and we take care at the back end of resolving that issue for the customers. So they just have one point of contact from a support perspective as well. So I think that's one of the key challenges we've heard from customers, surprise so to speak, and then that's how we've been addressing that particular challenge for those customers and delivering that experience.
Thank you, Sanjay. Any last comments?
Well, Faris, I just wanted to thank you very much for inviting me to this podcast and be able to share our views on networking in general and Arcus in particular. And we hope we have the opportunity to be able to engage with a lot of the African customers. There are exciting times in the continent, and there's just so much that we believe we can achieve together, and we would love to partner up and continue on this journey. So thanks so much again, Faris.
I know it's fairly early in the West Coast, so we do appreciate it. This has been very instructive for me as well, and I hope it will be for audience as well.
Love the
Thank you.
conversation. Thank you, Faris.
Yeah.